On a night when the cold felt almost alive, she sat alone at a deserted bus stop, exhausted, freezing, and completely unaware that someone had been watching her long before she noticed the headlights slowing beside her. She thought it was luck, a warm car, a concerned stranger, a way out of the dark. But what happened next wasn't luck at all. It was the kind of moment every black woman fears when no one is around to witness the truth. And before dawn broke, her life and everything she believed about safety would be shaken to its core. What really happened on that icy street? It had been another long shift, the kind that left Eleanor moving on autopilot. As a young black nurse working rotating nights, exhaustion had become a constant companion, but she carried it with quiet pride. Her patients depended on her. Her mother worried about her. And Eleanor, she just kept going, the way she always had. Her routine rarely changed. Clock out, grab her things, catch the late bus, and hope the city night didn't swallow her whole. Havenwood wasn't dangerous on paper, but for someone who looked like her, safety was never a guarantee. She knew which streets to avoid, which corners felt wrong, which stairs lingered too long. Still, she told herself she was being cautious, not fearful. Tonight should have been ordinary. She covered a double shift for a colleague, grabbed a quick coffee, and slipped out into the icy air. Her mind was on her warm bed and the promise of silence. But as she neared the bus stop, something felt off, a flicker in her chest she couldn't explain. The street was too quiet, the cold too sharp, and the familiar glow of traffic seemed to disappear the moment she needed it most. She tried not to think about the stories she'd heard, the ones people whispered but rarely believed until they happened to someone they loved. She tried to ignore how alone she was at nearly 3 in the morning, how the night always felt different for women like her. Still, she forced herself to sit, to wait, to pretend everything was fine. But Eleanor had no way of knowing that her routine was already breaking apart, that someone else had noticed her before she even arrived, and that the choices made in the next hour would change much more than just her route home. Eleanor tried to steady her breathing as the minutes dragged by, but the cold wasn't the only thing tightening around her. Something felt wrong, an uneasiness she couldn't name at first. It started when a patrol car crawled past the bus stop, its beam sweeping over her like a spotlight instead of a simple glance. The officers inside didn't move on the way most drivers did. They lingered, watched, judged. She felt it instantly. The unspoken suspicion so familiar it stung more than the freezing wind. A tired black woman alone at 3 a.m. to them, it was enough to raise alarms. When they finally drove off, she tried to convince herself she was imagining things. But the fear didn't leave. It followed her, settling deep in her chest. The kind of fear that comes from knowing you can do everything right and still be seen as wrong. Then came the realization that shattered the little calm she had left. Her pockets were empty. No wallet, no phone, no transit pass. Everything she needed to prove who she was or call for help was gone. She didn't know when it happened, only that the loss made her even more vulnerable. Without identification, without money, without a way to reach anyone, she was suddenly a stranger in her own life. As she sat shivering on the edge of the bench, another car slowed, this time a dark sedan gliding toward the curb with silent confidence. The warmth of its headlights washed over her, but it didn't bring comfort. The vehicle was too polished, too deliberate, as though it wasn't passing by but targeting her. She felt herself tense, her mind racing between hope and dread. Every instinct told her to be cautious. Every memory told her how quickly a harmless moment could turn dangerous. She had heard stories, nurses leaving late shifts, women disappearing in the dark, black women dismissed or blamed when things went wrong. She didn't want to become one of those whispers. Not tonight. Not ever. But the cold clawing at her skin made rational decisions harder to hold on to. Her teeth chattered violently. Her fingers were numb. Her body felt heavier by the minute. And as the sedan idled beside the bus stop, The world around her seemed to shrink to a single choice: freeze and hope the bus arrived in time, or trust the unknown and risk everything she feared most. Inside the car, she glimpsed a man watching her, well-dressed, composed, unreadable. His expression wasn't hostile, yet something about the moment felt too perfect, too timed, as if he had been waiting for her and not merely passing through. A sharp gust of wind cut through her jacket, jolting her back to the reality that her time was running out. The street was empty. The night was merciless. And the bus, according to the dim display board, was still far from arriving. Her heart pounded as the sedan remained still, as though the night itself was holding its breath, waiting for her next move. She didn't know it yet, but this moment, this frozen stretch of silence, would mark the beginning of a chain of events that would expose an even deeper truth about who gets protected, who gets suspected, and who gets left to freeze in the dark. She shifted slightly on the bench, torn between fear and survival, completely unaware that the real danger was just beginning. Eleanor felt the world tilt the moment the sedan door closed beside her. Warm air rushed over her freezing skin, but the comfort didn't calm her. If anything, it made the fear sharper. The man's voice was steady, reassuring, but her mind kept replaying the moments that led her here. The patrol car slowing to study her, the missing wallet, the empty street. She wasn't in danger because she made a bad choice. She was in danger because, tonight, her survival depended on trusting someone she didn't know in a world that had never given her a reason to feel safe. As the car pulled away from the curb, blue lights suddenly flashed in the rearview mirror. A police cruiser swung behind them, sirens silent but presence unmistakably threatening. Eleanor's stomach dropped. She knew that look. She had seen it her entire life. The assumption, the judgment, the automatic suspicion aimed at people who looked like her. The cruiser accelerated until it rode the sedan's bumper, forcing the driver to slow. Within seconds, 2 officers were at either side of the car, flashlights burning through the windows like accusations. Eleanor's breath caught as the beam hit her face, lingering as if searching for something criminal in her exhaustion. The driver tried to explain he'd found her freezing, stranded, without a phone or wallet. But the officers didn't look at him. Their questions were aimed at her, sharp, doubting, condescending. Why was she out here? Was she sure nothing happened at the hospital? Did she really lose her things? The implication hung in the air like poison. A black woman, on a cold street at 3 a.m., must have done something wrong. Her hands trembled in her lap, not from the cold now, but from rage and humiliation. The night had taken so much from her already: her safety, her sense of control, her dignity, and now even her attempt to get help was being twisted into suspicion. And just when she thought it couldn't get worse, one of the officers stepped back, hand hovering near his belt, eyes narrowing as if he'd already decided who she was. In that split second, Eleanor realized how easily the story could end right there, on the side of an empty road, misunderstood and unheard like so many before her. The world seemed to stop. One breath, one glare, one wrong assumption. And Eleanor braced herself for the moment that would decide whether she made it home or became another name, whispered in anger and grief. By the time dawn finally broke over Havenwood, Eleanor was no longer the same woman who had stepped out of the hospital hours earlier. The night had stripped her down to her most vulnerable self, cold, afraid, and painfully aware of how quickly a black woman could become both invisible and targeted at the same time. But it had also revealed something deeper: the unsettling truth that safety wasn't just about warmth or shelter. It was about being seen as human in a world that often decided otherwise. The man in the sedan had driven her to the nearest station, insisting she get checked by paramedics before she went home. He wasn't cruel or threatening, just a stranger who saw her suffering and chose to help when others passed by. But the kindness didn't erase the sting of everything that happened before. It didn't erase the suspicion in the officer's eyes. It didn't erase the way her missing belongings instantly turned her from a professional into a question mark. She sat quietly in the warming room, hands wrapped around a cup of tea, letting the reality settle. This night could have ended differently. Too many nights just like it have ended differently for women who look like her. And no matter how many degrees she earned, how many lives she saved, or how carefully she lived, she still carried a target she never asked for. When she finally walked out into the early morning light, she felt both grateful and angry. Grateful she made it home. Angry she had to survive something she never should have faced in the first place. Because her story isn't rare. It isn't extraordinary. It's a reminder, one we keep hearing again and again. So the question is, how many more nights like this will it take before we stop treating black safety like a gamble and start treating it like a right?